The letter of Jeremiah, also known as the Epistle of Jeremiah, is a deuterocanonical book of the Old Testament. This letter purports to have been written by Jeremiah to the Jews who were about to be carried away as captives to Babylon by Nebuchadnezzar. It is included in Catholic Bibles as the final chapter of the book of Baruch. It is also included in Orthodox Bibles as a standalone book. The title of this work is misleading, for it is neither a letter nor was it written by the prophet Jeremiah. Author. According to the text of the letter, the author is the biblical prophet Jeremiah. The biblical book of Jeremiah already contains the words of a letter sent by Jeremiah from Jerusalem to the captives in Babylon. The letter of Jeremiah portrays itself as a similar piece of correspondence. As E. H. Gifford puts it, the fact that Jeremiah had written one such letter to the captives seems to have suggested the idea of dignifying by his name another letter not written in reality till many ages after his death. Most scholars agree that the author was not Jeremiah. The chief arguments put forward are literary quality, as well as the religious depth and sensitivity. J.T. Marshall adds that the use of 7 generations, rather than 70 years, for the duration of the exile, points away from Jeremiah towards one who deplored the long exile. The author may have been a Hellenistic Jew who lived in Alexandria, but it is difficult to say with certainty. The earliest manuscripts containing the Epistle of Jeremiah are all in Greek. The earliest Greek fragment was discovered in Qumran. Gifford reports that in his time, the great majority of competent and impartial critics considered Greek to be the original language. As one of these critics, O. F. Fritcher, put it, if any one of the apocryphal books was composed in Greek, this certainly was. The strongest dissenter from this majority view was C. J. Ball, who marshaled the most compelling argument for a Hebrew original. However, Yale Semitic scholar C. Torrey was not persuaded. If the examination by a scholar of Ball's thoroughness and wide learning can produce nothing better than this, it can be said with little hesitation that the language was probably not Hebrew. Torrey's own conclusion was that the work was originally composed in Aramaic. In recent years the tide of opinion has shifted and now the consensus is that the letter was originally composed in Hebrew. Date. The date of this work is uncertain. Most scholars agree that it is dependent on certain biblical passages, notably Isa 44:9-20, 46:5-7, and thus can be no earlier than 540 BC. Since a fragment was identified among the scrolls in Qumran Cave 7, it can be no later than 100 BC. Further support for this terminus ad quem may be found in a possible reference to the letter in 2 Maccabees 2:1-3. As mentioned above, the use of 7 generations, rather than 70 years, points to a later period. Ball calculates the date to BC 307-317 BC, and Ted Edge notes, it is well known that many Jews were attracted to alien cults throughout the Greek period, 300 BC onward, so that the warning in the letter might have been uttered any time during this period. Canonicity. Although the letter is included as a discrete unit in the Septuagint, there is no evidence of it ever having been canonical in the Jewish tradition. The earliest evidence we have of the question of its canonicity arising in Christian tradition is in the work of Origen of Alexandria, as reported by Eusebius in his church history. Origen listed Lamentations and the letter of Jeremiah as one unit with the book of Jeremiah proper among the canonical books as the Hebrews have handed them down, though scholars agree that this was surely a slip. Jerome provided the majority of the translation work for the Vulgar Latin translation of the Bible, called the Vulgate Bible. In view of the fact that no Hebrew text was available, Jerome refused to consider the Epistle of Jeremiah, as the other books he called apocryphal, canonical. Despite Jerome's reservations, the epistle is included as chapter 6 of the book of Baruch in the Old Testament of the Vulgate. The King James Version follows the same practice, while placing Baruch in the Apocrypha section as does Luther's Bible. In the Ethiopian Orthodox canon, it forms part of the rest of Jeremiah, along with 4 Baruch. The epistle is one of 4 deuterocanonical books found among the Dead Sea Scrolls. The portion of the epistle discovered at Qumran was written in Greek. This does not preclude the possibility of the text being based on a prior Hebrew or Aramaic text. However, the only text available to us has dozens of linguistic features available in Greek, but not in Hebrew. Hence introductions of a Greek editor, not required for minimalist translation. Contents. The letter is actually a satire, or harangue, against idols and idolatry. Bruce M. Metzger suggests one might perhaps characterize it as an impassioned sermon which is based on a verse from the canonical book of Jeremiah. That verse is Jer 10:11, the only verse in the entire book written in Aramaic. Tell them this: these gods, who did not make the heavens and the earth, will perish from the earth and from under the heavens. Jeremiah chapter 10 verse 11. The work was written with a serious practical purpose, to instruct the Jews not to worship the gods of the Babylonians, but to worship only the Lord. As Gifford puts it, the writer is evidently making an earnest appeal to persons actually living in the midst of heathenism, and needing to be warned and encouraged against temptations to apostasy. The author warned the Hebrew exiles that they were to remain in captivity for 7 generations, and that during that time they would see the worship paid to idols. Readers were extolled not to participate, because the idols were created by men, without the powers of speech, hearing, or self-preservation. Then follows a satirical denunciation of the idols. As Gifford explains, in this folly of idolatry, there is no clear logical arrangement of the thought, but the divisions are marked by the recurrence of a refrain, which is apparently intended to give a sort of rhythmical air to the whole composition. The conclusion reiterates the warning to avoid idolatry.